Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Before I get into this story time, I just wanted to let you know that I'm going to be posting on here more regularly, so make sure you put on the post notifications so that you know every single time I post. Some of you guys will already know that I was traveling when the pandemic hit, so I'm just going to walk you through my experience start to finish. So back in December, I made the rash decision to fly across the world to Vietnam to teach English. I had been looking for jobs in Toronto for a few months and not really having any success, so I thought I would just take a new trip and a new adventure. I didn't really have any plan of where I was going to be living in Vietnam because I wasn't really sure what I would like, so I took a few job offers and declined them because I wasn't really definitive on where I would want to stay. Since I was going to that side of the world, I figured it'd be a good opportunity to go see some of my friends in Australia. I'd lived there twice. I'll save that for another story, but I wanted to go see them, and I thought it'd be a good opportunity. So I booked my flights, and I was flying through Hawaii first, and then going over to Australia before going to Asia. So when I decided to leave, it was the end of January, and at that point the virus wasn't that serious, at least not in North America. So when I went to Hawaii, things were pretty normal. Then I headed over to Australia, and things were getting a little bit worse, but it wasn't really noticeable. It was once I got to Perth around the middle of February that things started to get more serious. When I was leaving there, I had to fly through Singapore, and that's when Singapore was hit the hardest. So it was definitely weird being in the airport there. People were taking temperatures, not the forehead gun ones, but the ones that are like just like you walk past and it like can tell if someone has a high temperature or not. So there was those set up all around the airport. It was pretty dead. Like, I'd been to Singapore before, so I was used to seeing like quite a lot of people at that airport, and there was pretty much no one. Everyone there was mostly wearing masks, and there were like a little bit of, it seemed like there were precautions in place, but it wasn't anything like too crazy. I still had hope at this point that things would just get better. I was also just getting over a cold that I caught in Australia, so my main concern at that point was just being let onto the plane and getting into Vietnam because I could have still had a temperature or something from my cold. So I was really worried about that, but I wasn't worried about the virus at all at that point. When I arrived in Hanoi in Vietnam, things were getting worse. So this was like the third week of February, and I met some people, we traveled together, and we went to Ha Long Bay and certain places like that. And that's when I started to notice how bad it was getting, because we were all made to wear masks when we got on different ferries. And when we got off at a certain port, we had to put masks on. They were taking temperatures everywhere. Then I also found out as we traveled down the country that the kids were out of school, or not in school because of the virus. So this kind of foiled my plan of teaching abroad. I thought there would still be some time, like if I traveled for a little bit, things would get better and the kids would be back at school. So that was my initial plan, that I would just keep traveling for a few weeks, see what happened with the virus, and then go from there. When I realized that sadly schools weren't going to be opening anytime soon, I was just like, okay, I guess I'll travel for a little bit and then go home to Toronto at the end of May when the weather's warmer, because I really didn't want to be here for the full winter. So I decided to go over to Cambodia, and then from there I was going to go maybe to Laos and some other countries in Asia before heading back. Things started to get a lot worse when I decided to go over to Cambodia. I went with a friend I had made, and we went by bus, and we found out shortly after that we were on one of like the last few buses. They closed the land borders between Cambodia and Vietnam, I think the next day or two. So we were lucky to get into Cambodia. After going to Koh Rong, an island in Cambodia, for my friend's birthday, we decided to head up to Siem Reap. And from there, I wasn't really sure what was going to happen. I initially thought I was going to be traveling, as I said before, but once we got there, that was when things got so bad. So I got to Siem Reap March 11th, and I stayed there till the 17th. and that week was probably the most stressful week of my travels, just because I started waking up every day to messages from my friends and family saying I should come home, that things were getting worse, and I was in denial for sure. I really didn't want to come home. I wasn't really prepared to come home at that point in time. All the hostels I did notice from that week and even a little bit before in March were putting hand sanitizer out, making you fill out forms saying that you weren't coming from China, and stating where you're from, where you were going, and they were taking temperatures as well. Eventually, my cousin, who's a travel agent, reached out to me and said she had a really good emergency fare with Air Canada to get me home. At that point, I was still not really wanting to come home, because I made plans for my birthday early April, my 25th, to go to an island in either Malaysia or Thailand with the friends I had made. So I was really bummed that I had to come back. I wasn't really planning on it. So I decided to initially fly to Bangkok, and from there I had to make my decision if I was going to get a flight home the next day. Because my cousin was able to get me such a good deal, I thought I might as well take it, because the prices of flights were fluctuating quite a lot at that time, and I wasn't sure if I would be stuck somewhere and have to pay a lot of money just to get home. So I ended up booking my flight, and I flew from Bangkok to Tokyo, and then Tokyo direct to Toronto. The flight was pretty standard. The only difference I saw on the flight at that point in time was that they wouldn't refill my reusable water bottle. They were just handing out plastic ones, which I absolutely hate, but that was how it was. Other than that, I didn't really see much of a difference. There were more people wearing masks, but it wasn't mandated, so not everyone was wearing a mask at that point in time. When I got home and landed in Toronto, I was pretty surprised by how they were handling the situation. I got back on March 18th, and they just handed out a form saying that we had to self-quarantine for 14 days, and that was pretty much it. They didn't take temperatures. They weren't asking where you had been or anything like that. So I was a little bit thrown off and thought it was strange that they weren't really taking any extra precautions at that time. So that kind of sums up my experience with the virus. When I got back, it wasn't a lot of fun having to quarantine, but obviously it was for a good reason, and it's too bad that so many people's plans got disrupted, but that's just how it is, I guess, right now. If you were traveling when the pandemic hit, I'd love to hear what your story was and what happened to you. So leave a comment below or reach out to me on Instagram. I'd love to know and just have a conversation about it. The next video I'm going to be putting out is a story time with my best friend who came to see me in Australia. So make sure you subscribe and turn on the notifications, because you won't want to miss that one. I'll see you guys next time. Bye.